it's a pleasure of mine to be out here at Al's in Sherwood with Mark Biggie. And Mark, you know, spring always makes us want to get outside. And one of the things a lot of us are really getting into is planting a vegetable garden and small fruits.
Yeah.
And strawberries is top of the list for a lot of people. You've got a great selection here. Let's talk a little bit about them and then plant some up.
Sounds good.
All right, so what are your favorites?
A couple of my favorite varieties. One would be a hood strawberry, which is a great June-bearing variety. And then Seascape is another one of my favorites. That's an ever-bearing variety.
Now, let's grab one up and walk over to the planting area, but tell me what's the difference between June-bearing and ever-bearing?
Well, June-bearing, basically they produce their fruit ripens at all around the same time. So typical June-bearing will start to ripen into May, early June, and you'll get all your fruit ripen right around then. And ever-bearing, it will ripen throughout the growing season.
Okay.
So they'll start in May and wind up fruiting all the way through.
So if you're a person who does like to do canning with them, then you want to get both, so you have eating all season long and then the one big crop.
Exactly. That's a great way to do it.
Now, I see these look like they're in a gallon, but it looks like there's more than one plant in there.
Right, there are. And in each of these gallons, we put about 10 crowns or 10 plants. And so what you want to do when you go to plant them is go ahead and dump them out. And each of these crowns you can tease apart.
Now, and you know, they shouldn't be concerned about pulling them apart. It's not going to hurt the strawberry to do that.
Not at all, no. These are very tough. You can see, look on these, the roots are even starting to grow.
Yeah,
so
they sure are.
Telling you it's time to get them planted.
Now, how would you go about? Do you do a certain, you know, is there space between them? How do you go about planting them in your garden?
Yeah, in your garden, I go use one of these crowns about every foot and go 10 to 12 inches apart down a row. You want to make a row out of them.
And how deep in the soil would you put it?
Well, what you want to do is, I can show you as I'm planting in this container. You can see we've already mixed some transplant fertilizer in there. You see the little blue
Which is
flakes.
Al's transplant fertilizer.
It is, of course.
Good product.
Always use, yeah. So when we plant them, we want to make sure that the crown stays above the soil.
Okay.
So you can see how it's kind of sitting a little bit high there.
And so really, let's just show them what it is. The crown is just right above where the roots connect.
Right, so you want your finished soil level to be about right there.
Now, and they do well, we should mention this, they do great in both containers and the garden.
Yeah, absolutely. This is what we call an earth box, which works excellent for strawberries, but also in containers like your strawberry planters. And then, of course, out in your garden, you know, they're perennial. They're going to produce year after year. So you want to put a nice row of them in. That's a great place.
And then that brings up the question, Mark. You know, I think a lot of people have heard throughout their gardening history that always take off the fruit the first year.
Right.
Is that something that you all at Al's recommend doing?
You know, on the June-bearing strawberries, the first crop is going to be really small.
Yeah.
And I would go ahead and pull those off so that you make sure that all the plant's energy is going to developing a good root system.
Because that's where the health of the plant will be.
That's right.
In the future.
You got to develop that plant. You know, on your ever-bearing, I would take off the fruit for the first, couple months.
Because they're ever-bearing, so they're going to keep blooming anyway.
Right. They're going to keep doing it all season. So, you know, come about July or August, I'd go ahead and let some of those start to ripen, and you can start harvesting those.
And what about like next year? Because a lot of people see strawberries, they have these runners on them. What should they do with those?
Now the runners, you can either, depends, if you're growing them in a row, you can use those runners to fill in your row. If they start getting out and spreading and filling in where you're walking, you can go ahead and pinch those off.
Okay. Well, you know, there's all kinds of strawberries to choose from, and there's lots of information. So if you'd like to get some in your own garden and get them going, you can come out to any of the Al's locations and talk to their great staff. Thank you so much, Mark.
Absolutely. Thank you, William.